I'm so thrilled to be here to introduce the world premiere of Dìdi, directed by Sean Wang, part of our U.S. dramatic competition. It is an energetic, layered coming-of-age story focused on a first.
The hours leading up to the premiere, I was just kind of like so anxious. You know, I couldn't eat, and I had to intro the movie, and I've never introed a movie before, and it was very, very nerve-wracking.
I am so pleased to welcome to the stage the writer and director of Dìdi, Sean Wang.
I mean, it was like, it really is just, I'm processing, like I process it when I talk about it, but it was a very defining moment in the journey of this movie and in the journey of like the life of making this movie. Like that's what you dream of, and is just like trying to be in the moment and present for that was so hard. I just remember talking and I was like, if I talk for 3 more words, I'm just gonna start like puking and crying in front of everybody. Similar to the movie, if I trace everything back now, it all started from skating. I think skating was the first thing in my life that I felt like was my discovery. It wasn't like me wanting to be like my sister or like my family friends. It was something that was like a very pure love. I think through skating, there's just a culture of photography and music and videography. And so all throughout high school, I was just making stuff, but I didn't know that I didn't have the language to call it filmmaking. I was just like, oh yeah, I like making stuff, filming stuff, editing it, putting music to it, and then showing my friends. And I would just upload it to YouTube. It was what I did for, you know, years and years and years, and I think it wasn't until the first couple years of college where I think I started saying to myself like, oh, I think I want to be a filmmaker, whatever that means.
I met Sean about 5 years ago, I think.
Here we go to Paramount's Great America.
Was prepping for a movie that I directed called Summertime. So we were looking for a documentarian, and a friend of ours connected us. We were both living in New York at the time. He sent me a couple of Sean's shorts, this one particular one called 3,000 Miles that he did. And I just remember feeling just like so emotionally invested in his storytelling and the way that he used images to tell these like very, very evocative stories. So I invited him to join us for the production. And from there on, I think we started a really nice friendship and also just collaborative thing that has remained alive for almost 5 years. Oh, dude, you always do that. Your lips are so greasy, and it's impossible to clean the camera when you kiss it.
Dìdi, when people ask me what it's about, I sort of say it's a movie that really tries to capture the irreverence, the vulnerability of adolescent boyhood, but at the heart of it is also a very tender and complicated and turbulent relationship story between this boy and his immigrant mom.
Are you sad?
Fine. I felt like the things and the world that I kind of grew up in, I had never seen those textures in the movies that I loved. And also I hadn't seen kids who looked and talked like me in the movies that I loved. And so it felt like an opportunity to kind of contribute something new and fresh within a genre that I relate to as someone who had never seen myself in those movies.
My first impression was just like, if this movie can get made, like if we can figure this out, I really think that it's going to be something special. And I really think that this feeling that I'm feeling as I'm reading it, if we figure out a way to translate that onto the screen, people are gonna have an experience unlike any they've ever had.
Sound speeds. Single cam, Mark.
Shooting the movie in my hometown was amazing in so many different ways.
Action.
I felt the support of the city, and so it felt like this community of people who were like, how can we help?
You Dr. Jeffrey,
And I think that's something I wanted to try to infuse into the movie, like really make it a love letter to a place. It's always fun having all these like movie craftsmen at like places that we're like, oh yeah, this is where I bought Asian snacks. So, no con. Filmmaking isn't made in a vacuum. It's dozens of, maybe hundreds of people trying to take all these different elements of colors and sound and just chips, right? And hopefully having it come together to translate an emotion. I think when you think of filmmaking in your toolkit, obviously I think we both know that sound is a secret weapon to any sort of emotional gateway in filmmaking, but then to like realize, oh, there's sound, and then there's like all these different tools within sound and sound design. And I've never had the chance to play with a tool like Dolby Atmos, and I think to get to have that, it kind of reconfigured the way I want to approach sound, because you can do so much with it, and using that to really sink yourself in his subjective point of view to make it all feel like the way he feels, which is life or death. You know, it's like my whole world is crumbling around me, but the viewpoint of adulthood, it's like, okay, you're not going through that much, but when you can sink yourself and go back to what adolescence felt like, it feels like when your friend, you know, betrays you, it's like that is life and death in that moment, because you don't know anything else.
You think about these tools, you think about Dolby Atmos, like, oh, of course, you know, superhero movies could really use this, right? And you just get to hear explosions all around you. And I don't think that we realize how these tools can impact independent storytellers, and how an indie film that takes place mostly in a house with 5 people sitting around a kitchen table, how all of a sudden having access to this toolbox can really allow a moment that's like this big just feel a lot. It's not even about size and making it bigger, but just so much more impactful.
Using Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, I think, really allowed us to sink into that subjectivity, and I think our whole goal really with the movie was to make sure you felt the way that he felt.
I'm your son. I'm sorry I'm not a bragging right to your friends.
To me, this experience and working closely with Sean and his family really was sort of like a game changer. You feel the movie and you feel the personality that it has and the like love that went into it, and you only feel that because there's a community behind it, and because Sean's family was involved in the filmmaking. And there's just like all these layers of meaning that you can't possibly recreate as hard as you try.
Can't quantify it. It's like an intangible feeling that I think was what filmmaking is. Like, sometimes it's just a feeling. It was that hope with the movie that like the process informed the product. That like it would be my family getting involved, it would be my hometown friends getting involved, all coming together to create one bigger communal family that felt homegrown. We always had one foot in that world of we're just making something with our friends, the same way we did when we were 14 years old.
I am so pleased to welcome to the stage the writer and director of Dìdi, Sean Wang.